If you're an intuitive, sensitive person and you've struggled with understanding the difference between intuition and anxiety, today I talk about how I figured out the difference, what I'm still learning, and the things that have helped me along the way. Hey, and welcome to my channel. I'm Mary, and this is The Inner Knowing, a channel where we realistically talk about what it's like to feel deeply, have intuitive inner knowings, and be sensitive in a world that's not always so kind. Today, I'm talking about how I came to understand the difference between intuition and anxiety. And to be honest with you, it has taken me a very long time to understand it, and I am still understanding it on a deeper level every day. When everything in life is peaceful, it's a lot easier to understand that intuition is this quiet little voice that comes in. But I've also come to find that my intuition comes in many shapes and sizes, and my anxiety is a sneaky little bitch. And she tries to worm her way in there. And a lot of times, intuition is followed by anxiety. So, the different ways that I experience intuition is yes, that little voice in the back of my head, that little whisper. Sometimes it's that. But for me, 9 times out of 10, it's a deep inner knowing. It's this feeling that I can't kick. And my brain kind of keeps cycling back to it, much like anxiety, but it's a little bit different. I've experienced it where I have like a thought come into my head and I can't get off of it, and it's very hard to distinguish the difference between that and anxiety or OCD because those things are intertwined in there. I think a lot of that is my sensitivity, right? Like being more sensitive means I'm going to be more anxious and means that I have to be able to understand what's my anxiety and what's not. And this is a lot of internal work, a lot of understanding what different feelings are. So when I'm experiencing an intuitive knowing, an inner knowing, a lot of times it's like a bodily reaction, but the base of it is peace. No matter what information I'm getting, in the moment of the intuitive knowing, there's this base of peace. And I can feel it deep in the core of who I am. It's almost like there's like this unshakable ground beneath the knowing, right? And then a lot of times that'll be followed by anxiety and my brain panicking. And I'm going to kind of get into some examples of that in a couple minutes. Other ways that I feel intuition are I'll be very drawn to something, not because I like it, but because I feel a certain energy coming off of it. Or I'll have that little whisper in my head, or I will have something much louder than a whisper in my head, which, to be honest with you, I don't really know exactly what to call it. Some would probably call it channeling, some would call it God. I call it my soul voice. But when there is something that I am not allowed to miss, this voice comes in my head, and that sounds crazy, but it has been very right about things that are going to happen in reality. And so I've learned that when that voice happens, it means business and we don't question it. Anxiety shows up, and sometimes it can feel there's a very slight difference in a lot of the ways these two things show up, right? Like when I have an intuitive knowing, a lot of times like I won't be able to get off of it and my brain is just going on the same thing over and over and over again until I do something about it. And anxiety can show up that way too. But the way I differentiate is that when I have that initial knowing, there's that base of peace. And then there's the of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How's this going to go? And my brain starts being anxious. If you've been keeping up with my channel, then you know I've been dealing with a lot of health anxiety. And I have really been running into a lot of challenges with differentiating what's actually my intuitive knowing and what's my brain getting stuck in anxiety on a certain sensation and fear. And anxiety has a time and a place, right? It's a good thing. It's meant to keep us safe. You have to have a relationship with your anxiety and your fear in order to be able to hear your intuition. All of this work of learning to hear your inner voice and trusting yourself comes down to the relationship that you have with yourself and how deeply you know who you are. And that means being uncomfortable and looking at things that you don't want to, and accepting that some things that you thought were intuition were really anxiety. And it can get really confusing. And I'm not going to say that I have a clear cut path for you to figure this out. What I'm telling you is you have to witness and observe and make mistakes and allow yourself to be in that discomfort to understand the difference. And this is something, like I said, that I'm still struggling with. Like, I'm still getting weird symptoms, even though I'm getting small moments of my body is getting better. But like when I first started having issues with my body, there was this deep seated in peace knowing of your body is having to go through transition right now, and it's working some things out, and things are going to get dicey. And then immediately after that comes the chaos of my brain. I call my brain Leslie. Giving my anxiety, I have a fear driven brain, right? My family is very much driven by fear, and I can't help the brain that I have. But what I can do is understand it, learn to work with it, and befriend my anxiety. So I gave my anxiety a name, and I call her Leslie. And Leslie likes to ruin my day a lot. But Leslie and I are slowly learning to understand each other, to understand what each other needs. And I can't allow my intuition to push Leslie past her comfort zone, and I can't allow Leslie to block out my intuition. And learning the difference has been it's been rough. Um there will be days where I'll have like a new symptom, and then my brain is just like, "Oh my god, I need to go to the doctor." And then it's like, "Okay, no, let's take a beat. Are there other things that are showing me that my intuition is right here?" Like, you have to be able to listen to both. You can't have one without the other. They balance each other out. I'm still learning how to do that. But what I'm learning is, yes, anxiety is loud, and typically intuition is quiet, but sometimes the opposite can also be the case. And what I find is the most stable way for me to look at it is that feeling of peace in my body is what I have to listen to. And then the anxiety gets really loud, and it's like a screaming child that wants you to listen. And then sometimes it calms down and the peace will come back in. But then I have to actually use Leslie, as in my brain, to look at things from a logical perspective, because I can't just look at it from an intuitive perspective, because a lot of times an intuitive knowing is going to tell you maybe a piece of the story or what an outcome is going to be, but it's not going to tell you the whole journey of getting there. It might tell you bits and pieces, but you don't have the whole map. And that can be extremely frustrating for an anxious brain. An anxious brain wants to know the answers to everything. It wants control because that's what makes it feel safe. And I find that when those control things are coming up and I'm starting to want to like do something and I want to know and that's the anxiety. When the control starts gripping, whether the voice is loud or quiet, that is the anxiety. Intuition is, okay, I just kind of need to ride this out, adjust when necessary, and I'm okay. And there's this peace around it. The best example of this that I can think of is I talked about in my Woo Woo Shit Wednesday series, in my pet stories video. This time where I was over at my best friend's house when we weren't living together, and her cat was on like the banister, and I started petting him, and that voice of my soul voice came into my head, and it said, "You can go now." And immediately my anxiety skyrockets, and it's like, where is he going? What's happening? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean something's happening to this cat, right? But that voice coming in, it's like my body feels grounded in peace. And these sensations, I'll feel them in different places in my body, but the main thing is peace, right? Like, I've had intuitive knowings come from my womb. I've had intuitive knowings come from just a thought, but that thought feels different and it's very subtle. Anxiety driven stuff, it comes from a place of control. And if you don't understand that anxiety and control are one and the same, you don't understand that intuition and peace are also one and the same. And this is why the basis of understanding the difference between intuition and anxiety is understanding the difference between control and peace, control and release. And I'm still learning how to do this. I've gotten much better at it. I went through a period where anxiety was taking over. And this has happened a few times in my life. A lot of times I'll go through like these waves of like, I'll have like huge intuitive, like, I don't want to say downloads, but like huge intuitive like rushes, right? Of like, there's a bunch of things that I know and then they happen and then my system gets overwhelmed and then the anxiety takes over. And so I'm learning to find the balance between those things. And it really is about balance. Hating your anxiety is not going to help you hear your intuition. Blocking out your intuition isn't going to quiet your anxiety. You've got to understand both of them. And that takes practice. There's not a quick, easy, fast route to that. Some of the things that have helped me kind of figure this out along the way is finding a way to kind of detach my emotions from the situation and look at it from a third person perspective. Some people get to this place by doing meditation, by grounding, by going on walks in nature, whatever you can do to kind of help you get to that place of peace in your body where you can take a step back from a feeling or a thought and really look at the big picture and connect to that part of you that understands that it's watching your thoughts and that your thoughts aren't you. And if you don't understand what that is, this is where you need to start. Form a connection with the part of yourself that is aware that you're thinking thoughts. I don't care how you do it. A lot of people say meditation is the only way. I disagree. Meditation doesn't always work. It's useful, it's a tool. You need to build a toolkit of multiple ways to help get yourself there and understand that you're not always going to be able to get back there, especially when anxiety is screaming. And that's one of those times where you just have to learn to befriend the anxiety, let it be there, do what you can to kind of help it feel safe. When you learn to connect these two pieces, you become a grounded person. And grounded doesn't mean you never feel anxiety, and it doesn't mean that you don't listen to your intuition. Grounded means I understand both exist and I can hold them at the same time. And that's how you learn to differentiate between the two. If this is something that has been helpful to you, or you just like the woo-woo shit videos, or you're curious about intuition and anxiety, or these are things that you've struggled with in your life, then this is the channel for you. Drop a comment below, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.